They told me the fresh air would do me good. After the incident, the doctor said I needed peace, space, and time away from the world. Spring had just arrived when I checked into the little cabin at the edge of Halberd Woods, a charming place with daffodils lining the path and songbirds fluttering overhead. It should have been perfect. But even then, something inside me itched. Something that no pills or therapy sessions could smooth away. The first week passed quietly. I woke with the sun, sat on the porch sipping coffee, wandered through the woods in the afternoons. The earth was waking up, buds on the trees, crocuses breaking through the thawing soil. Everywhere I looked, life was stretching and yawning after winter's death grip. I should have felt alive too. I told myself I did. But at night, when the wind rattled the shutters and the scent of damp soil filled my room, something deep beneath my skin twitched. I began sleepwalking, or so I assumed. I would wake up with dirt caked under my fingernails and mud smeared across my clothes. Once, I found twigs tangled in my hair and a bloody scratch down the side of my hand. The dreams started around the same time. I dreamt of sinking into the earth, warm and wet, roots wrapping around my arms and legs like chains, of a voice whispering, low and patient, "Grow with us. Join us." Each morning I told myself it was nothing. Stress, recovery, healing wasn't linear. But the forest disagreed. One afternoon, while walking the trail behind the cabin, I noticed something odd. A cluster of flowers I hadn't seen before. Dark red, almost black, with thick stems and petals like bruised velvet. They pulsed slightly in the breeze, almost breathing. Drawn to them, I knelt, brushing my fingers over the petals. A sharp pain jabbed my thumb. I yanked my hand back, heart pounding, but there was no thorn, no wound. Just a lingering ache, deep in the meat of my palm, as if something had wormed its way inside. After that, I changed. At first, it was subtle. My sense of smell sharpened. I could pick up the faintest hint of pollen, the musty decay beneath the forest floor. Colors seemed too bright, almost painful. The greens of the trees, the golds of the sun, the reds of those strange flowers. They vibrated in my skull like a hive of bees. I stopped sleeping altogether. I didn't need to. At night, I roamed the woods barefoot, feeling the cool soil between my toes, humming a low, tuneless song that bubbled up from somewhere deep within me. Animals began to avoid me. Birds fell silent when I passed. Even the insects fled. I found myself smiling at the silence. One night, under a swollen full moon, I caught my reflection in the window pane. My skin had taken on a gray-green cast, mottled like lichen. My eyes, once brown, were now pale and glassy, shot through with spiderweb-thin veins. I should have been terrified. But instead, I laughed. A low, broken sound that sent shudders through the glass. I realized then that I wasn't healing. I was becoming. People started disappearing from the nearby town. First a young couple out hiking, then a boy chasing frogs near the marsh. Search parties combed the woods, flashlights bobbing like fireflies in the darkness, but they never found anything. I watched them from the treetops, where I clung like some twisted growth, my bones hollow and light. Their voices sounded muffled, distant, like insects buzzing behind glass. When they left, I descended to the earth, moving on all fours through the ferns and moss, following the scent of fear. I don't remember the first one I took, only the feeling, a heady rush of power, of hunger briefly sated. Their faces haunt me sometimes, in the brief moments of clarity I still have. Wide-eyed, mouthed frozen in screams, hands clawing at the dirt, trying to pull away from something they could barely see, something that still smelled almost human. Almost. This morning, spring reached its peak. The trees are heavy with green. The air is thick and sweet, cloying, suffocating. And I know that I've passed the point of no return. I crouch near the edge of the path now, waiting. I smell the newcomer before I see him. A young man, backpack slung over one shoulder, map crumpled in hand. Lost. Perfect. I imagine what he sees, the twisted trees, the sudden hush of birdsong, the sense of being watched. His steps falter. His breath quickens. Sweat beads on his brow despite the cool air. And then he sees me. Or rather, he sees what's left of me. He takes a step back, mouth opening to scream, but I'm already moving, unfolding from the brush like a nightmare. I pin him easily. He struggles, whimpers, pleads, but I barely hear him over the roaring in my ears. I want to comfort him. I want to tell him it's okay, that soon he'll understand. Soon, he'll be part of the forest too, just like me. They told me the fresh air would do me good. They were right. I have bloomed, and I am beautiful. Spring break was supposed to be a reset. One last crazy trip before real life caught up to us. Jake found the cabin online, a dusty Airbnb listing in the Everglades, way off grid. No cell service, no neighbors, just miles of swamp and trees. It sounded perfect. There were 5 of us, me, Jake, Sarah, Marcus, and Lindsay. Best friends since freshman year. We packed beer, weed, bad decisions, and set out in Jake's truck, chasing that fleeting, desperate freedom that only people in their 20s really believe in. The first night was magic. We drank by the fire, dared each other into the woods, told ghost stories we barely remembered from childhood. Somewhere after midnight, Sarah pulled out a Bluetooth speaker and blasted music while Lindsay danced barefoot under the stars. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what life is supposed to feel like. I wish it had ended there. The second night, Jake found the grave. We were stumbling back from the swamp, laughing about something stupid Marcus said when Jake tripped over it, a small mound of dirt, half hidden by weeds. At first, we thought it was a tree root or an animal's den, but then we saw the cross. It was crude, just 2 sticks tied together with dirty twine, stuck at the head of the mound. Jake, being Jake, laughed it off. Probably some kid's dead hamster, he joked, kicking at the cross. Sarah told him to stop. Lindsay said we should leave it alone. But Jake was drunk, and Jake was always the loudest in the room. He grabbed a fallen branch and started digging. I should have stopped him. I should have done something. Instead, I stood there and watched. The dirt was looser than it should have been. Fresh. Jake didn't have to dig long before he hit something. Something wrapped in dirty cloth, about the size of a large dog. He pulled it free and unwrapped it like a present, laughing the whole time. Then he stopped laughing. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't anything I could recognize at first. Bloated, gray skin, hair matted in clumps. A twisted, half-rotted human hand flopped out of the cloth. Sarah screamed. Lindsay ran. Marcus threw up. And me? I just stood there staring. It wasn't fresh. God, it wasn't. The smell hit us all at once, like sweet, rotting meat left in the sun. Jake dropped it and staggered back, wiping his hands on his jeans. "What the hell is that?" he whispered, voice cracking. None of us answered. "We should have called the police. We should have left immediately. We should have done anything but what we did. But panic makes people stupid. Fear makes them worse." Jake started talking fast, about how it would look, about cops, about ruining our lives. We were drunk. We were trespassing. We touched it. Our fingerprints were all over the place. He was right, and he was wrong, and it didn't matter. Because in the end, we buried it deeper. We dug with our hands, our nails breaking and bleeding until we hit the soft muck under the soil. We shoved it in, packed the dirt down, and ran back to the cabin like cowards. Nobody slept that night. The next day, things were different. The cabin felt wrong, like it was watching us. The swamp was louder, buzzing insects, croaking frogs, something slithering just beyond the trees. Lindsay refused to come out of her room. She just sat on the bed, rocking back and forth, whispering prayers under her breath. Sarah started sleepwalking. We found her standing outside in the morning dew, her bare feet muddy, her eyes wide and empty. Marcus kept blaming Jake, and Jake kept getting angrier and angrier, like a pot ready to boil over. As for me, I kept hearing scratching, from under the floorboards, from inside the walls. Soft at first, then louder. By the third night, Jake was gone. We woke up to find the front door swinging open, his boots abandoned by the porch. His truck was still parked outside. We called his name until our voices broke. No answer. Just the swamp, humming and buzzing like a hive of teeth. We waited all day, then all night. By dawn, we knew he wasn't coming back. That morning, we packed up. We didn't speak. We didn't even look at each other. Sarah drove. Marcus sat shotgun, staring blankly out the window. Lindsay clutched my hand so hard I thought she'd break the bones. We reached the main road, finally, mercifully. And just when I thought we were safe, I made the mistake of looking back. Standing in the middle of the road was Jake. Only it wasn't Jake anymore. His skin was gray, sagging in strips from his bones. His jaw hung crooked, broken. His eyes, God, his eyes, were hollow, filled with buzzing flies. He lifted one twisted arm and pointed straight at me. We didn't stop. We didn't turn around. We never spoke of it again. We all went back to our lives, back to our classes, back to pretending. Marcus dropped out by summer. He said he needed to get off the grid. Sarah transferred schools. Lindsay hanged herself in her dorm room 6 months later. As for me, sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still hear the scratching. Sometimes, when I'm walking across campus alone, I feel someone following me. The smell of wet earth and rotting flowers fills my nose. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear Jake's voice whispering from the dark, "We should have left it alone." They always say spring is about rebirth, about life returning after the dead cold of winter. But after what happened last April, I can't look at blooming flowers the same way again. It started innocently enough. I had just moved into a small, aging farmhouse out in the countryside, surrounded by rolling fields and dense woods. I was eager for peace, for a fresh start after a messy divorce that had left me hollow. The house came cheap, too cheap, but I was too desperate to ask why. The first night I slept there, I heard it, a soft rustling against the window, like fingers dragging lightly over the glass. I blamed it on the wind. Still, a pit settled in my stomach that didn't loosen, even when the morning sun drenched the world in gold. The fields around my property exploded into color. Wildflowers of every shade spread out like a painted sea. It was breathtaking. I spent hours wandering through them, letting the gentle warmth of the season soak into my skin. I thought maybe, finally, I could heal here. Then I found the scarecrow. It was odd, hunched low, almost hidden among the blooms at the edge of the woods. Not the usual kind you'd expect. It wasn't made of straw or burlap. It wore old clothes, faded flannel and jeans, and its head was just a rotted burlap sack tied at the neck with twine. Whoever made it hadn't even tried to give it a face. The air around it felt wrong, heavy. The flowers at its base were withered, blackened. I tried to laugh it off and turned back toward the house. That night, the tapping at my window came again, louder this time, more urgent. I pulled back the curtain, heart hammering, but saw only the fields rippling in the moonlight. No trees nearby, no bushes, no birds or animals. I told myself it was the house settling, an old frame creaking under the night air. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had watched me. The next morning, I found muddy footprints on the porch. They were large, wider than any normal man's, and they led straight up to the front door before disappearing entirely. I checked the fields for signs of someone trespassing, but there was nothing. No tire tracks, no crushed grass, no broken flowers, just endless, swaying color. I stayed inside after that, windows locked, doors bolted. Still, every night the tapping grew more persistent, more frantic. Sometimes it moved from window to window, circling the house. Sometimes I heard faint, croaking whispers that I couldn't quite make out. Sleep became impossible. On the fourth night, the tapping stopped. Silence blanketed the house so completely that even the usual chirp of crickets and hoot of owls vanished. I was sitting in the living room, clutching a fire poker, heart thudding painfully in my ears. That's when I heard the front door creak open. Slowly, invitingly. I didn't remember falling asleep, but when I blinked, the room was dark and the poker was no longer in my hands. The front door stood ajar, cold night air curling inside. I rose on shaking legs, half expecting some intruder to leap out. But there was only the field, glowing faintly under the silver light of the moon. Something called to me, not in words, but in a pull deep inside my chest. Before I could stop myself, I stepped barefoot into the grass. The flowers bent toward me as I passed, their petals brushing against my legs like pleading hands. I moved through them, drawn toward the woods, toward the rotting scarecrow. When I reached it, I could see that the burlap sack had begun to rot away completely. Beneath it, something black and writhing squirmed wetly. I gagged at the stench of decay. The scarecrow twitched, its arms jerking once, twice, like a puppet with tangled strings. That's when I realized the truth. It wasn't a scarecrow. It was a man, or what had been a man. Roots and vines had grown through his body, stitching him to the earth, hollowing him out. Tiny white flowers bloomed in the empty sockets of his eyes. And still, he moved. In horror, I stumbled back, but the ground itself seemed to grab at me. Thorny vines coiled around my ankles, pulling me down. The earth pulsed beneath me like a heartbeat. I screamed, clawing at the plants, but they tightened, digging into my skin until blood welled up. The flowers surrounding me leaned in closer, and I could see now. They weren't flowers at all. Each bloom was a tiny, yawning mouth lined with needle-sharp teeth. One of them sank into my wrist, tearing away a chunk of flesh. Another bit into my thigh. My screams were swallowed by the night. I fought, I kicked, but the field was alive, and it wanted me. As my vision blurred and I felt myself sinking, something shifted in the scarecrow man. His lips cracked open, and in a voice like rusted nails dragging over stone, he croaked one word: Bloom. I woke up this morning in my bed. Sunlight poured in through the window. The house was still, peaceful. Had it all been a nightmare? A hallucination from lack of sleep? Relief flooded me. I stood up, and my body ached like I had been crushed under a great weight. My wrists and ankles bore angry red marks, almost like burns. Dirt clung to my fingernails. Trembling, I stumbled to the mirror. At first, I saw only myself, pale, shaken, alive. Then I looked closer. Tiny green shoots poked out from under my skin, weaving through the veins of my arms like ivy. Small white buds blossomed along my collarbone, twitching in rhythm with my heartbeat. I tried to scream, but my throat was dry, filled with soil. Spring is the season of rebirth, they say. I am blooming now, and soon I will call to others, just like he did.